So in my younger years, I had this neighbor, and he was definitely an outlier, knucklehead, totally wild, reckless, a little animal. He was a terrorist, but fun guy nevertheless. But anyhow, one time I even had to fight this guy one time. I mean, this guy was a fighter. He used to beat up everyone. I had to fight him one time, and I was in elementary school, and we were even in the same class together. So, and neighbors, so everything. So we hung out all the time. Anyways, one day he decides to beat me up, and so round one he pummels me, gives me a little knuckle sandwich, and then round two comes around. I'm like, I'm ready to go at it, but I don't even know how to fight, so I don't even hit him with my fist. I just clutch his freaking throat because he was chubby, and I just squeezed it, and I left like a really bad red mark, and that was kind of like the end of it. But at least I got, in my mind, revenge, right? I was never a tough guy, but I had to toughen up. I didn't have an older brother or a father necessarily around at the time, so I was kind of left to fend for myself. I was the oldest of three, so I really had to knuckle up. I had to really toughen up. It wasn't really a choice at that matter. And I was a little guy. I was a tiny guy. So I wasn't imposing. Fast forward, I run into this guy's mom at Costco, and I'm saying like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? How's Eric?" And she's like, "Oh, he's he's a chef in San Francisco." Which is basically a euphemism for he's baking cookies in a penitentiary up north in the Bay Area. Is from what. So he initially tells me that, she tells me that I believe it, but then the aunt, another time I end up writing to her, she tells me otherwise, that no, he's actually just in jail up north. And I guess it just sounds fly to say that he's, a culinary chef in San Francisco, which obviously is not the case. But the guy had already had a track record that looked like he was headed there, ended up getting into gangs. I moved away from the neighborhood, so I didn't really keep in touch with him after about, 10th grade in high school. But the point remains, you have to try to prevent and get away from as much of the riffraff as possible. Geographically, I was kind of screwed in that regard because I went from one ghetto area to another. And so it was just like riffraff for essentially all of my younger years. And I kind of had no choice at the time looking back, but to lean into it, right? I wasn't going to be a nerd because I didn't quite see myself as such. So it was natural to try to hang out with the knuckleheads. But it's so important now more than ever to really stay away from the riffraff, especially as I get older. I realize I want no parts of nocturnal spaces, of places that have an aesthetic that are completely off-putting to me, such as rap music and beers or breweries for that matter. And if I see Dodger paraphernalia, I'm running out of the door. I'm screaming for help. I'm calling the police because it's just like I already know these kind of places typically invite trouble. And it's just like also just the discourse and the type of negativity that happens in these places is just not something I want to put myself in. So it's just something to think about because I think a lot of people don't even question and take for granted sort of like the ugliness of the world. And I'm here to tell you, like beauty is the ultimate sort of, it's really the only thing that matters, frankly, especially now that we're sort of like thrusted upon and we're made to believe that the things around us are the way they should be, right? This sort of technocratic, very vanilla, the very bland, very sterile environment that we're in, right? Because that's supposed to free us, right? Allow us to be ourselves. And aesthetically speaking, this has been the worst thing that's ever happened. I mean, I see so many people that not only are they just ugly physically, but the aesthetic choices they make are also hideous. Bull rings around the nose, tattoos from head to toe, really flashy, bright clothing. Everything about a lot of people is just an eyesore. A lot of infantilization. I saw a guy. I went to a museum, right? You would think, I mean, museums don't bring riffraff. Went to the museum and I see a guy he's a 50, maybe like a 55-year-old white guy, and he's got blue hair. And I'm thinking to myself, what compels a wrinkly old man to do such a thing? And it's just like, it's clearly because nobody has reprimanded him. Nobody's bullied him into embarrassment. Because the reality is people get away with everything because no one puts their foot down and everything is tolerated and no one's wrong. And I think that's the biggest crime of diversity, which is that everyone's right and no one's wrong. So essentially, it's open season. And what that has actually done, unfortunately, is made it kind of difficult to get around and not having to see so much Botox and fillers and just people that all kind of look the same. If we've found a way, the culture has found a way to manufacture uh, a sort of monolithic aesthetic, unfortunately. And I just want to be able to say that I've been able to kind of maneuver and get away from that and not take it for granted and not accept it. It's not on my terms. And I think that you need to have an honest assessment with yourself and say, am I around the riff raff? Is this something that I'm a part of? Am I indulging in it? And carve a new way. And this is not really like there's one way of doing it, although I think beauty is objective. So that's for certain. But how you go about it is really up to you. But some simple things that you may consider along the way. You want to exit the riff raff. You definitely want to prioritize dressing well, speaking well, and eating well. And I think if you do those three things, you'll find yourself in environments and spaces in ecosystems that are far better than what the average person is sort of indulging in on a daily basis. And believe it or not, unfortunately, this is a lonely path. A lot of times you're not going to find like minded people. It does take some time. Nevertheless, don't fret. There's opportunities there. And even me, I've been patient enough to say, you know what, I don't fit in, but I will find the spaces, I will carve out the niches that will allow me to be myself and not have to get punished for it, you know? So, like I said, bit of a riff, but the point is you want to stay away from the riff raff, all right? I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.